Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. All right. So you guys are in for it today. If you are listening, we've got a special show today. I get a lot of questions about syndications, apartment deals, general partners, limited partners, all of this stuff. And today our guest is a board-certified orthopedic surgeon specializing in sports medicine and the CEO and founder of Time Health Capital. He has extensive experience as a limited partner, over 20 deals. And this is with more than 4,000 plus doors and 1.3 million plus of allocated capital funds, with a focus on large multifamily properties, medical offices, oil and gas ventures, and agricultural as well too. And this just keeps going. Listen to this. In addition to that, he's co-general partner in several real estate investments and is committed to helping others find that path for themselves, finding financial independence through real estate investing. A member of the Real Estate Guy Syndication Mentoring Club since November 2021. Everybody, please welcome Dr. George Ozoude. Yes. Welcome, man. How about that intro, huh? I love the intros. How's that feel?
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be a part of your show and on your podcast. Happy to try to provide value. So I appreciate the intro.
Awesome, man. And what I love about those introductions is because every number matters. And sometimes, you get to a certain point in zeros and commas and all that, but every number matters. Every day matters. Just like in medicine and real estate investing, each one of those doors, each one of those dollars, you have a little bit of, little memory that goes along with them,
Absolutely. They all have a story that goes behind it,
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into even getting that first, dollar, right? Or that first door. Yeah. Definitely stories behind those.
Can't wait to jump into that. Again, thank you for your time today. We're excited. I'm excited to share this with the listeners today because, as I'm not a physician, but as a physician, there's so many of them wondering about the same way, I'm sure, how you came across this, the syndication, the opportunity to invest on a passive scenario, and then getting more active into the co-general partners, those kind of things. I can't wait to get into that. But we always like to start off on just a general summary of how you got into sports medicine. And a lot of times, orthos and stuff like that, they have some attachment to sports going into it. So tell us a little bit about that, George.
Yeah, very true. So definitely had some sports influence growing up. I grew up in New York City, where the main sport there is basketball. Funny enough, I live in Houston and practice in Houston now, where football is the religion. Yeah. But the equivalent of that in New York City is basketball. And so I grew up watching sports, particularly basketball. I was a Bulls fan in New York City, if you can remember, in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Tough. But I loved basketball, and I wanted to play basketball for as long as I could, Yeah. And so in junior high school and high school, loved playing organized sports, particularly, playing for the varsity team for my school for 3 years. I kind of had the dream to play at the next level, college, and then hopefully in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I don't think I was that good, though. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't that good. And I think around 10th, 11th grade, kind of started kicking around the idea of, all right, what else can I do if I don't, get to the next level? Mm-hmm. And it was actually one of my English teachers in 10th grade took our whole class to the school library and said, look, this is career day. Walk around the library, take a look at the different books. We have a career section. Take a look at what you might be interested in, and just explore, And, knowing my love for sports, knowing my upbringing with my parents, both of them in medicine, I kind of started molding and melding the two together. Right. And it's like, what could I do that involves sports that I love and medicine that I know? Mm-hmm. And, I started finding all these careers in sports medicine, all these options. And there's a ton. It's not just orthopedic surgery. Mm-hmm. And then for me, I knew I wanted to know as much as I can and help as much as I can. And I saw the route of going to medical school from that day. So since 10th grade in high school, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I knew I wanted to help athletes. And once I got in med school, I realized that orthopedic surgery is one of the best ways to do that. That team setting also gives me that feel, team physician out on the field, part of the team, part of helping everyone stay healthy and achieve a common goal. And that's what sold me on surgery. I loved using my hands, loved, operating and getting immediate effects, results. And so that's what led me down to orthopedic sports medicine route.
Awesome. And I'm going to bounce it back to the Bulls there, man. Come on. I'm originally from Southwest Michigan, and that Chicago is really close to that. And just that, man, I remember going, I think it was like the Bulls and the Hawks or something playing in Chicago. And that period. I mean, that was Jordan, Pippen, and that big, thick, heavy period right there. Phil Jackson, the coach.
That's right.
Man, that's some crazy times there. And you were living that life in New York City, right? So
hard, man. All my friends were huge Knicks fans.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It was a heated rivalry back then. So it was fun growing up, as you can imagine.
That's awesome. I also love how there's that sports tie into it too. And then you having experience with family medicine, then, that being in your life. So that kind of leads down that path too. So we see that a lot.
From a young age, I saw my dad, we moved to New York because of his residency. So I saw him go through that. I saw him get some jobs outside of, training and then start his own practice. Yep. And it was right around the block, right around the corner from where we lived. So, I got to see that firsthand. And, I have an older cousin who's a radiologist in Ohio, and I saw him go through the medical selection process for school and residency. So it's always been in my family. Several of my aunts are nurses. That's just what we do as Ozoudes.
Yeah, Ozoude. Very cool. And then how does that experience, when does like real estate come in? I mean, obviously, with single families, we're buying our own houses, those kind of things. But tell us a little bit about that, George. Like, what was your first brush with real estate?
Yeah, that is an interesting transformation and transition, because I never thought I'd be in real estate at all. Mm-hmm. I never thought I'd do anything other than sports medicine, orthopedic surgery. I thought that's all I needed to do. Work hard, go to school for 12 plus years, and I'll be rewarded with this career that I will be fully satisfied with, right? And then about 2-3 years into practice, you kind of start seeing the corporate side of medicine.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is something we are not prepared for as students, as trainees. And so once I started feeling that friction, I knew I couldn't just do orthopedic surgery for the rest of my career. I knew it was going to be a challenge to enjoy it the way I saw fit, And then from that point on, I was like, all right, George, what other passive income streams, alternate income streams can you, solidify in order to have resilience and optionality, the ability to pivot if I needed to. And I looked at all different types of investment asset classes. I looked from stocks to, businesses, venture capital, and I dabbled in each of those things. But what I really settled on after kind of doing my homework, listening to books, audiobooks, and podcasts, is that real estate is tried and true. It's been around longer than a lot of these other options, a lot of these other asset classes. And so that really nailed it down for me. And I did start with single family. I didn't really know what all was out there. And so I figured I need a place to live anyway. Let me start just, collecting single family homes. I can buy 1 or 2 every year, start with my own primary residence and just build a portfolio. And, real early into that endeavor, I realized that that's a whole nother job, like a tough job too. Mm-hmm. That's being a landlord for multiple properties. And I was like, nah, I'm a busy surgeon. At that time I was employed. Busy surgeon, that would not work, And so that's how I found multifamily syndications. You're able to partner with people, with talented, quality, experienced people, and work with them in order to get into bigger deals, larger deals with more efficiencies. And I can do that while operating. I'm not worried about, something going south with the deal, because we got a partner whose job is to oversee that business plan and that asset. So that became a lot more attractive to me. And I saw a pathway from that point on. All this earned income, this doctor money I'm making, I can funnel it and partner with syndicators and operators and build a passive income stream through that. And that made the most sense to me.
And that's quite a big jump in and of itself. Like the single family, I love about single family is the low entry point.
Yes.
So it's easy to get in. You've got a lot of other people, a lot of other opportunities, and the mistakes are smaller too, right, George? Like if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Right. And if you're talking about 100, 200 unit apartment building, that mistake could be multiplied how many times in, you know, the things are a little bit bigger there. But as an entry point, single family is great.
Yes.
How, you know, you made that realization that, and it sounded like you're managing these yourself. There were some things that you're doing inside of that wasn't working. How did you go from that into the syndication piece? Was it all through books that you're reading, or what's that, or was it a certain person or certain group that helped you make that first thought into the transition, right, not the actual action?
Honestly, where the seed was planted, it was while I was diving into the single family space. I would go to all the meetups around in Houston. You know, after work, I would just drive right over to a meetup and, you know, talk with different, you know, stakeholders there, whether it's brokers, lenders, you know, and you find out that there's meetups for different niches and asset classes. So at one point it was heavy on the single family meetups, but then I started catching wind of multifamily meetups. So I started attending those, you know, because I'm like, oh, what's this? What's multifamily? How is it different? What's the pros and cons? That's how I started finding out about syndications and how that can be used to scale up. And the syndication side of it solves that problem of that barrier to entry, because you can enter in as an LP into those deals with the same amount of capital that you probably could use to buy your own single family home. Yeah. So that kind of planted that seed, and I started learning more, talking to more people, seeing what the benefits of going that route would be. And it became clear to me that is the more efficient route for me. And a lot of single family operators actually get to a point where they want to actually graduate into multifamily, either small multifamily, you know, 5 to 75 units, or jumping into the larger 200, 300 syndications where they start pooling capital from other investors. So it seemed like that was the natural progression anyway, and I had the ability to kind of leapfrog into it. So it made sense to me.
I love there's always it's like this unspoken battle between investors. Some people are heavy into not necessarily directly single family, but you can scale up inside of single family as well too, doing portfolios and stuff like that. And then it's like this counter battle against apartment buildings about the roofs and all of this stuff. So it's always entertaining for me to sit back and see the difference in the investors.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that too. I noticed kind of the camps that perform.
The Bulls and the Knicks.
Right, exactly. The rivalries, the turf wars. And literally, you're right. There are folks out there who have knocked it out the park with single family portfolio. Yeah. They figured out how to create the systems, and they've amassed huge single family portfolios. So you can absolutely do well and get wealthy in that.
You can't do it if you're not doing it like a business, though. And that's like that piece where you step into syndication, you're stepping into a business, right? There's a difference there. Now you mentioned LP being able to I guess lower that entry point as an LP, and I just want to clarify for all of the listeners, that's a limited partner, and that's that kind of like entry level point into a syndication. And in that regard, depending on the type of capital raise that's happening, George, correct me if I'm wrong. I always like kind of like pinning down all the details here. Depending on the capital raise, you may be required to be a sophisticated investor, right, or a non-sophisticated investor. Can you talk to us a little bit about that on the limited partner?
Yes, this refers to kind of how deals are presented in the marketplace for interested investors. You can present them publicly over social media, over billboard. Under a 506C type of a deal. And this allows you to market publicly to accredited investors, and there's certain thresholds.
Accredited, yeah, not sophisticated. My bad. Yeah,
but there is a sophisticated investor as well, and that's also, that looks a certain way as well. But the main difference that we're talking about now is 506c for accredited investors and the thresholds that you are required to meet that, versus the 506b where you can have non-accredited investors. But in this type of deal, you can't market publicly. It has to be kind of what they call friends and family, people you already know and have an existing relationship with. And so it kind of separates the potential investors that you can get. Obviously, for the accredited investors, they're going to have higher income, proof of income, and net worth. So these are your doctors, your lawyers, your busy professionals who are earning a certain amount.
Which is fascinating. Sorry to interrupt you, George. Is that piece accredited is fascinating, because what I hear so much from physicians and high earners is because you're so focused on earning, you don't necessarily have the experience or the knowledge to know what to do with that. But yet here we're labeling this as, hey, you could only do this, meaning that you're okay to lose this amount of money. You may not know what you're doing, but I'm going to give you an accredited stamp.
And I think that's the spirit of the regulation and the law. And you'll find camps of people who are pro, accredited.
Yeah.
and I have my own views of that, but my understanding is the spirit of that law is if you lose all that money, you have a profession that you can absorb that loss and not be a burden to the state.
Interesting. So that accredited piece, and I think it's somewhere around $1 million or something like that, right?
For net worth for a single person,
liquid,
$1 million. It's 200,000 for annual income over the last 2 years.
Okay.
And then it changes if you're a couple. It goes up to 300,000 if you're a couple.
And then the non-accredited, this is the interesting part where you could, by finding those niched kind of meetups, and the meetups may be just like at coffee shops or restaurants or bars or whatever, where you can find these places on Bigger Pockets. You can find them on Facebook groups, all of that stuff, where you can then start building and nurturing relationships to have that ability to not be that accredited investor, right. But then that reduces the amount of capital required, right?
No, the capital is the same. It can be a deal that you need to raise $10 million for.
No, I mean, for the investor, do I still have to be up to the accredited investor levels with my capital in order to be part of the 506B fundraise?
No, it doesn't it only takes into account the relationship, if you have that relationship with the person. Right. So now they're not looking at these thresholds. Yeah. And the amount that they can invest, it can be, there's no limit to the amount that they can invest, whether you're a 506B raise or a 506C.
And that's coming down to then the general partner who is going to be wanting the headache of how many partners do you want to have in this?
Right.
So it could be 10,000, it could be 50,000, could be 200,000.
Correct. Right. And that what impacts that is usually how low your floor for your minimum investment is. The lower that floor is, the more you're going to get a larger group of investors. The higher that number is, say like a $500,000 minimum, you're likely going to get a smaller group of investors, and they're very likely going to be accredited.
Yep. And in this path, I see this a lot too, where we'll come in as a limited partner, and the growth happens when you absorb more than just the return on the money itself. What I mean by that is you're going to absorb the experience. You're going to keep working on that relationship with the general partner. What are they doing? How are they doing it? And that's where the real value is going to be as a limited partner, right?
Absolutely. I talk about this all the time to my investors. I talk about the return on investment, not just being the financial number, right?
Yeah.
You can make money in a return financially by the capital gain, like you mentioned, the appreciation, depending on the deal, if it has cash flowing, capital and tax breaks as well. But then there's the non-financial return on investment. That's the relationship, the education, the experience, the community building. You're going to get to potentially meet all the other LPs, right? And you start forming these bonds in these communities. I think there's a lot of value in that.
Hmm.
in addition to the actual numbers, the actual capital you get, right? So I agree.
I mean, just I look back at my journey. I know I've said this a lot. Every time where I've seen massive spikes in progress, in personal development, whatever it is, it's because of the room that I'm in.
Yep.
That happens. And this path setting forward on syndication is okay. Most of the time, you start in as the LP, but you start seeing these exactly like you're saying, the non-financial return on investment.
Absolutely.
And that's how you start climbing this ladder, right? So what did that look like for you, George, coming in on an LP? I mean, how many LPs were you? I see you're co-general. And just for everybody out there, in my mind, I'm seeing like this ladder where LPs have the least amount of responsibilities, the most passive, kind of stepping into, right, there's a sponsor that's kind of like NLP where you're putting your credit kind of on the line, right? And then there's the general partners who are basically the jockeys whipping the horse, right?
Yep.
So what did that look like for you? And how many like limited partners, and what was that climb up that ladder for you?
Yeah, that was a time where I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go. I entered as an LP, and I thought, it'd be nice to see more doctors doing the co-GP. That would have been really good for me as a new LP to see another doctor who I can invest with, who understands kind of what we're going through. I thought it was a great stepping stone. A lot of GPs will say that is a great stepping stone into becoming a GP. And whether that's, the lead operator, like you mentioned, the ones who are running the deal, the jockeys, or if it's a syndicator or a sponsor, the ones who are helping with investor relationship, who are helping with capital raising, who are helping with different parts of the asset management that the lead operator needs. It's a great way to learn those things because you're going to be in some of the calls. Maybe you can request to be in some of the calls as an LP. You're going to get all the communications for the updates, right? You're going to get the underwriting. You're going to kind of look through that. You're going to get to ask questions as an LP, right? And so this is great learning. There's like residency, we go through residency in medical school as doctors. That's a great learning opportunity for you to build your way into a GP role.
And as you're vetting that GP, as you're vetting the jockey, it's almost like if you've planted this seed ahead of time saying, okay, what are the communications going to be like? How involved can I be? Because I don't want as a passive scenario, yes, I don't want to have to do all of this stuff, but this part in my investing career, I want to learn all of this. So what are the communication platforms? How much of that underwriting is going to be exposed to me? How much direct access do I have? How much can I bother this person, right?
Absolutely. And they're interested in you as a physician. Now I'm talking kind of from the physician.
Yep.
These operators are interested. They understand that you have a network of other potential investors who you can speak to and really clarify this whole process for them and who they can trust, and so they're interested in you. And so if you as a physician LP go to the operator and just say, hey, I just want to sit in on the calls. I'm curious to learn. A lot of operators be interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that thing that you're talking about with physicians, I've heard it called this, and in my mind, I see it as tag along investing, which is good and bad. So the tag along investing is Dr. Joe is doing it. He's making money. So now I can go do it. Right. But that same instance, I still encourage everybody to make certain that you're watching. I mean, you're learning, because nobody's going to care more about your money than you. Absolutely. And if you're always tag along investing, then you're never taking that lead step, right?
Right. It's very true. I always try to, really drive home the fact that you still need to know what you're investing in. And I've had some of my physician friends say, George, whatever you're doing, just sign me up, put me in it. I'm like, nope.
Tag along. Yeah.
Not doing that. We're going to at least have some level of understanding of not only what you're investing in, but why you're investing. That's always what I start. It's like, what's the goal? Why are you doing what you want to do? Yeah. And it's usually not just some financial number as an answer. It's like, why does that financial number matter to you? What does that do for your life? And so it's more than just tagging along. Like you said, you know, we got to understand what you're doing, who you're working with. You know, those things are important to me. I think those things are more important to me than someone just tagging along, because it's a long-term relationship that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't just want to, you know, have this one and done. I want to establish a long-term relationship with that physician investor.
Absolutely. Those are the questions that have to be asked out front, whether it's no matter what asset class it is, a single family, multifamily, anything, the values and the time that you have investing in finding out that why is important. And the idea of, was it like the 7 whys or something, that you got to ask yourself 7, because it's not the money. Money doesn't do anything for you. You can stack that up across your desk. You can make a couch out of it. It's not going to do anything for you.
Paper.
Yes, there's an exchange of value that you use that for. What does that do for you? How does that make you feel? Let's keep diving down, right? You know, we're thinking about this, George, this co-GP, and it just kind of like this thing. I wonder if we titled this podcast co-GP, yeah, you know me, is anybody going to know what that means? Do you hear the jingle in your head?
It definitely rings off the tongue. But yeah, it's a confusing term. There's definitely like the whole co-GP versus sponsor versus syndicator versus operator.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit of a confusing thing. But once you kind of just expose yourself, you know, get around the discussions and the conversations, you start realizing what that actual term means.
Yeah. And for me, from the outside looking in, I've not done any apartment deals. I've not done any apartment deals yet. I've got some mixed use commercial, single family, stuff like that. But in this journey, syndication has come up so many times, and I've learned so much talking with investors just like you. So again, thank you for sharing that with us. The co-GP idea, I mean, is that the final outcome for you in multifamilies? Is that where kind of like the upper, I mean, what's next?
Yeah, kind of where does this all head, right?
Yeah.
You know, when I decided to get on the GP side as a operator, or as a co-general partner, let's call it that, I didn't really know exactly what that meant, because there's a list of things you can do to contribute to the GP team. And what I had to realize is, what were my strengths? What can I bring to the team that, you know, would help? And for me, it was the education component for specifically for other physicians and other healthcare providers. And it's the investor relations, the growing of the community, right? Which is, you know, a capital raiser, investor relations personnel. And so once I realized that, it became a lot easier for me to kind of see where I fit in and where I focus my energy. And that's where I want to plant my roots in terms of syndication. That's important to me. Whether I have my own portfolio or not, I want to build a community of physician investors. That has a mission behind it. That's my big why, right?
Why do you think that is?
Very important. We need, now more than ever, we need independent physicians. The majority of physicians are employed, and they're under a very, very tough system of the corporate medical model, which impedes our ability to provide top quality care and have satisfying careers. We lead the nation in burnout and suicide rates. And that just doesn't make sense to people who are healers and provide health, right? So
this is, now I want to dig down on this why for you even more, because I'm hearing a lot of this. I get to speak with a lot of physicians, and I'm also on the outside of the physician world because I'm not a physician. And I'm telling you, George, I'm hearing this over and over and over again inside of these walls, but not outside of these walls. Sure. So, and it's the corporate thing, and it's the burnout, it's the W-2, and I see it. I see high performance people building these machines that eat them. Right. And what I mean by that is the income as it comes in. Even when you're setting up partnerships with other people, you've got to keep performing. You got to keep providing practice. And you just got to keep rolling, and it's just going to keep eating you. It takes you away from your family, takes you away from who you are. And it's just crushing. And I see it over and over and over again. So that's why I'm digging down on this, and I see the passion in you and how that relates to sharing. Because one of my questions is always, as a guru or a real estate person, is I hear it a lot. I get asked it a lot too. It's like, why would you want to share this with other people? If you're so good at what you're doing, why would you want to share it with others? And it comes down to what we just went through about asking the right number of why questions. For you, it's that link between why you got started in the first place, that brush up against the corporate piece. And now you're seeing it squash other people, and the burnout and suicide thing is massive.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. That's my big why. It's why I want to pull more physicians into this. I think an independent doctor who has choices can create their own career reality, right? And so this is a route that I think should be explored by as many physicians and healthcare providers and busy professionals as possible. And so that's where I kind of realized where I fit in on the GP teams. And I got excited, there's other folks who can do the underwriting. They can, organize all the contractors, they can.
That job is a job in itself right there, buddy.
They find the deals. They can establish the broker relationships. They can talk to the lenders. And I'll help with investor relations, education, capital raising. And so it's a team effort at the end of the day. And so I think I forget your original question, but it was kind of related to where I fit in and where I see myself. I see myself as investor relations and capital raiser.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. That escalated from the Coachy B idea and say, where does this go from here? And that question led into the passion that you have to share this with others and the reason why behind it. And I think what you said there, independent doctors can create their own reality. And that's where, and again, it's so fun, George, because I'm so much of an outsider seeing this stuff. I'm real estate, talking with physicians, and to see it like this path forward of that freedom that, not only private practice creates, but in the world where there's a difference between need and want. Yeah. When we create this machine, we're stuck in the need. I need the next thing. I need the next payment. I need this next thing. Yeah. And then when we leave that in the world of understanding what being wealthy means to us and living this line where our passion passes through our wealth generator, that's this whole different world of medicine that you're talking about. So
at the end of the day, we're all patients. Even I'm a patient. And so I want to go and see my independent doctor who's not kind of under the thumb of this corporate medical model, providing me the care that, I need. I want that doctor to be independent, happy, healthy, and providing great care.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then just as a patient too, coming through these certain experiences in my life that are just rolling back through my head. And when I don't get like someone looking me in the eye and slowing down and taking a breath, I can only imagine what so many physicians, especially emergency room physicians, like the stuff that they have to deal with. And the same time, as a patient, I want to be able to look you in the eyes genuinely and say, okay, I'm a person. I'm here. I can do whatever you need me to do. Just give me 1 second. That's all I got. That's all I got of you. So, and that's just that difference too, that freedom. When we're living in survival mode, we cannot be creative in survival mode.
Very true. Very true.
So, man, that's just that path is so fascinating. I love how it tied into your passion to give back to others and the reason why.
It's the reason why I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like I just got to know you even more now, George. That was really cool, man. So now let's pull this full circle. Now, how can, say there's a physician out there listening right now, and man, you touch them with the burnout thing, the corporate piece, the suicide rates increasing, and man, there's so many places that I wish we could share. Maybe you would have some resources we could share with them on that particular piece. But what if it's something where, okay, I'm here, I'm hearing you, I feel you, George. I want help. Where do I need to go? How can you help the listeners?
So I like two angles when you're getting started. And whether you're a physician or not, is number one is to be curious and just start asking questions, start looking up sources, resources that are literally at your fingertips. So podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube channels. You can just go onto that search box and just type in what's on your mind. And you're just going to see all this information that just loads up on your phone or on your computer. And you just start diving into that and maintain that curiosity. Set aside time just to kind of learn and have quiet time to just absorb that information. And that's just going to get the juices rolling in your mind. It's going to get the ball rolling, and you're going to ask more questions. You're going to realize there's more you even want, you'd like to learn. And that'll open up the door to the next step, which is to be social and start networking. Start going to different meetings where you can start having one-on-one conversations, eye to eye, in person, shake their hand, and start growing the community of like-minded thinkers, physicians like yourself. And that's key. I think those two things are a great start.
What do you say to someone when, I'm sure you've heard this before, and I'm sure if I could see some of the listeners right now, they're probably saying, George, I don't have time for that. What do you say to them?
Yep. And that's a great point. Before all of that happens, you have to have a change of your mindset in order to realize where you're prioritizing your time and your energy, not just your time. Where are you prioritizing your time and your energy on a day-to-day basis? And where can you start tweaking that? For me, that looked like, all right, I just don't really enjoy watching TV anymore. So I cut my cable service. And instead, I spent that time reading podcasts. I had a 30-minute long commute to work. Then I stopped listening to music. I just started listening to podcasts, And so you just find these pockets to create time. In my surgery center, when I was employed, we had such long delays and turnover between cases. Well, guess what I did? I found those earbuds and I just popped my earbuds in, and in between cases, I either listened to a great podcast or finished my taxes.
That's awesome.
So you just start, getting creative ideas of where to find more time throughout the day. Started going to bed early, waking up earlier so I can have kind of free time to myself before the day gets crazy.
Yeah, I think that's huge, George, because so much of this comes back to mindset. And again, back to that first piece, the mindset. I think you hit it on the nose there. That being the first piece that rolls in. Then we're talking about values and time investment that goes with the exit strategy, whatever asset class you want to work with. But all the way back to the beginning is this mindset piece. And I hear it all the time too. I don't have the time, right? I've been thinking about real estate. How many times have I heard that? I've been thinking about getting the real estate. Well, you're always going to be thinking about it unless you do something about it. And this, I don't have time, is a limiting belief. And you've heard it so many times, the same as I have, is how many hours in a day, George?
Same for you and for me.
That's right. That's right. So everybody's got the same amount of time. A billionaire's got the same amount of time as somebody who's holding up a sign saying, I will work for food. It's all amount of time. And then you hit it too on step back and prioritize, right? And the thing that jumps into my mind is, what are you willing to give up to go up?
Correct.
And that idea of the TV, man, that thing is just going to suck time away from you. And I got to a point where I was like, man, I deserve it. I deserve it. I've got this nice recliner chair. I'm just ready to stop thinking. Well, there are times, yes, that you can do that, but you've got to prioritize. In this specific moment, you gave us two shots to two angles. Start reaching out to what's available. It's already in front of you. So prioritize. What are you willing to give up to get those pieces to grow? And then go out and be social. Once we get rid of these limiting mindsets, and a way to do this too, I love this, is to say, what would it look like if I did have time?
Right.
You ask that simple question, and then you remove that the negative block that's happening. Well, I could then do this. Okay, then my mind's going to start working. Okay, well, what do I need to give up to go to that? Right. So just encourage everybody, whenever you find that limiting belief inside of yourself, like I don't have time, or that's for other people, or I don't have the money, right? I want you to ask the question in reverse. What would it feel like if you did have the time? What would it be like if I did have the time? What would I do if I did have the money? Right? It's just, there's no excuse that will stand ground with me. There's just not.
Right. No, I think that's a great angle that you've described of just planting the seed. It starts with a thought in the mind, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of where that be curious, aspect comes in. You could even YouTube and Google, how do I create more time as a busy X, Y, Z, whatever. Yep. how do I create more time for reading, podcasting? And you're just going to get tons of hacks and cool, clever ways to just create more time. But you got to be curious first.
Yeah.
Or just ask that question first, right?
Have you ever heard of Jim Rohn?
Absolutely.
Man, so the curiosity, childlike curiosity, and that just that drive, and that's kind of like what puts you into that path and asking those questions. And I've said it so many times that since I've heard it, I'm definitely not the creator of this, but the smartest person in the room isn't the one that knows everything. It's the one who asks the best questions. Great. And man, I think that that line, that angle is just great, being able to ask those questions, because it starts with that curiosity. And so many people have it right at their fingertips. How can the listeners contact you, George?
So the best place to reach me is on my website, timehealthcapital.com. And my email is george@timehealthcapital.com. I am on all the social media platforms, but I am most active on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, George at Time Health Capital. Very cool. And the LinkedIn is it's not user friendly, I have to say, George. You got a big long slug at the end of that LinkedIn. Did you know that?
What do you mean?
So it's George C. Ozoude, sorry, MD, and then there's a number.
Oh, really? I don't even know how that looks.
Yeah, man. So you can change that. Yeah. So okay. What you could even do is you could go there and say Time Health Capital. Like that could be your LinkedIn tag. So yeah, it's LinkedIn is an older platform, but it's developed professionally, right. You know, and I don't know at what point could you start changing that, but yeah, you can change that. Let me know if you can't, because I don't want to be misleading you on this. I'm definitely not the most tech savvy person, but that way it makes it easier for me to say, hey, go to this, you know.
I always thought it was kind of funny how to leave a LinkedIn handle, it never seemed very clean. So that cleans it up a lot. I'm going to have my VA dive into that. And
do that. VA, that's a whole nother world, a whole nother discussion about time. Yes. I love it, man. Well, we are rolling up on probably about 40 minutes here in the discussion, but man, I'm sure we could talk for hours and days. But everybody can reach out to you. And I just, again, want to thank you for your time. I think that touch into your why really touched me. And again, I'm just echoing, like, I'm hearing this so much, and it's only talked about, I feel like, inside of these walls when I'm speaking with physicians, and nobody knows about it out there because physicians are rich. Physicians are wealthy. What is it? Why do we have to care about them? Why do we have to worry about them? Right.
That is the prevailing thought out there, is we've got it made and everything's peachy, but nope. There's a lot of friction going on. And the majority of us went into this for really good reasons, so we just got to get back to that.
Awesome. If you could go back 10 years and have one instance with yourself 10 years ago, and you had the chance to tell yourself something, what would that be?
Oof, man, I would say start that curiosity even earlier. Even while I was in medical school, in residency, and those are some tough times, like talk about not having time.
Right. Yeah.
But even then, I would say it to young trainees. I have mentees now, and even a little bit, just start educating, get that curiosity going, and start feeding it the information. I wish I had that knowledge base growing 10 years ago.
Awesome. And every time I ask that question, I love it too. In the same regard, it's almost like a trick question, because it's prepared you. Your experience have prepared you, and you're exactly where you need to be, and you are exactly who you need to be right now. So I want to thank you for the choices that you've made, man, and everything that you've given to everybody that you've helped along the way. And I can see it, man, the people that you're going to help, because that why behind you is not even behind you, man. That's a magnet out in front of you, and it's pulling you in that direction. So just thank you for your time and what you're doing to help people. Thank you, everybody out there, again, for listening to another episode of Real Estate Mogul MD. If you get the chance, drop into Spotify or Apple, whatever platform you're on, and leave us a review. We really appreciate it. Send us any questions that you have. If you want to be on the show, come on in. We'll welcome you. I don't know. I've got the new one. The You Down with Code GP? Yeah, you know me. That might be the tune here for this
Have to
one,
run with
man.
that one.
Yeah, right. But you can send us an email at info@physicianwellsystems.com. And just thank you for your time. And like I say every day, thank you for your attention, because without that attention, time is nothing. Without that why, money is nothing. Without time, without attention, time is nothing. Thank you for your attention today. And until the next time, until we catch you here, we'll talk to you soon.